Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Jai Vishnu Padam Srila Astatara Satashi Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. Go pray in the Hungary.
It says 34. 4634.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 6. Brahma satisfies Lord Shiva. Text 34. Sanandanathyar Mahasiddhai Shantai Samshanta Vigraham Upashyamanam Sakyacha Vartra Kuyaka Rakshasam Sanandanajayar Mahasiddhai Shantai Samshanta Vigraham Upashyamanam Sakyacha Vartra Kuyaka Rakshasam Sanandanajaya Mahasiddhai Shantai Samshanta Vigraham Upashyamanam Sakyacha Vartra Kuyaka Rakshasam Sanandana Ajaya, the four Kumars, headed by Sanandana, Mahasiddhai, liberated souls, Shantai, saintly, Samshanta Vigraham, grave and saintly Lord Shiva. Upashyamanam was being praised. Satya by Kubera. Chat and Vartra by the Master. Guyaka Rakshasam of the Guyakas and Rakshasas. Translation. Lord Shiva sat there, surrounded by saintly persons like Kubera, the master of the Guyakas, and the four Kumaras, who were already liberated souls. Lord Shiva was grave and saintly. Purport. The personalities sitting with Lord Shiva are significant because the four Kumaras were liberated from birth. It may be remembered that after their birth, these Kumaras were requested by their father to get married and beget children in order to increase the population of the newly created universe. But they refused. And at that time, Lord Brahma was angry. In that angry mood, Rudra, or Lord Shiva, was born. Thus, they were intimately related. Kubera, the treasure of the demigods, is fabulously rich. Thus, Lord Shiva's association with the Kumaras and Kubera indicates that he has all transcendental and material opulences. Actually, he is the qualitative incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, his position is very exalted. Translation again. Lord Shiva sat there, surrounded by saintly persons like Kubera, the master of the Guyakas, and the four Kumaras, who were already liberated souls. Lord Shiva was grave and saintly. Om again Chimanandasya again Anjana Shalakaya Chakshurapalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It is said that you can judge someone by the company they keep. There are different ways to ascertain someone's quality or what their thing is. You can try to go by dress. The popular saying is that dress doesn't make the person. But although people say like that, they're very quick to judge someone by the dress. And you can judge someone more precisely by the sound vibration that rolls off their tongue. Particularly, you can judge someone by the questions they ask. And as we pointed out before, asking questions is a constant part of our daily life, whether we realize it or not. So Srimad Bhagavatam glorifies questions about Krishna and the process to attain Krishna. Constantly throughout Srimad Bhagavatam. The speaker, whether Shukadeva Goswami or Maitreya Muni, they glorify the questioner. Vadiyani Shake Prashna Krito Lokahitam. Your questions are glorious. They are beneficial to the whole world. They are proved by all transcendentalists, and only the type of questions that you're asking, questions about Krishna and the process to attain Krishna, only those kind of questions can actually satisfy the self. I don't know if you've ever thought that you should ask questions that satisfy the self. In material life, we ask questions because we want to gain material fulfillment and satisfaction. That activity will never bring about a satisfying result, and even just about such activities will never satisfy yourself. So yes, you can judge someone by their dress. You can judge someone by the sound vibration rolling off their tongue, particularly the questions they ask. And you can also judge someone by the company they keep. In the case of Lord Shiva, that's tricky. You're hearing in this verse about his extraordinarily spiritually advanced associates. You have the four Kumars, who this verse explains are already liberated souls. You have Kuvera, the fabulously rich Devata, demigod, who's actually the treasure for the Devatas. And Lord Shiva has other associates, though, that you don't want to meet. They're described here. Guyaka Rakshasam. Lord Shiva is the master of the Guyakas. Okay. They are the associates of Kubera. But he's also the master of the Rakshasas. The ghosts, the demons, hobgoblins. They make advancement by their association with Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is merciful to them. When we speak of the opulences of Lord Shiva, we've already explained that his abode within the material universe, Kailas, doesn't reveal all the opulences that Shivaloka, which is outside the material universe, reveals. We've been speaking about Narada Muni searching for the devotee who is the greatest recipient of Krishna's mercy. So he's been hearing from Lord Brahma, who is the father of both Lord Shiva, apparently, and of Narada Muni. He's been hearing from Lord Brahma that, why are you glorifying me? I'm nothing compared to Lord Shiva. Which will seem very hard to understand, because Lord Shiva smears his body with ashes, wears a garland of skulls and intoxicating weeds and leaves. In this way, as we explained a few weeks ago, Lord Shiva is showing demigods like Indra and Brahma, you've got nothing on me. All your extraordinary opulence is so temporary. I'm showing you that. That's why I'm dressed the way I am, with a garland of skulls and intoxicating weeds, and smeared with ashes. Most of the time, Lord Shiva's naked. He's showing the most opulent demigods. Don't be so attached. Whatever you have is going to be gone in a flash. So Lord Brahma's pointing this out. To Narada Muni, you've got to understand who's really got Krishna's mercy. And so, you may remember, we explained last week, but repetition of spiritual items is not a fault. Lord Brahma notices, as he describes the glories of Lord Shiva, that Narada Muni is looking down, because they're on Brahmaloka, the topmost planet of the universe. So Narada Muni is looking down towards where Kailas is. But Brahma wants him to understand that that's actually not the greatest manifestation of Lord Shiva's opulence. You need to go outside the universe to Shivaloka. So immediately, what does Narada Muni do? he takes off for Shivaloka, chanting, Shiva, Krishna, Shiva, Krishna, Shiva, Krishna. He's chanting like that because, practically speaking, Shiva is not different from Krishna. There is a difference, like, as you know, the difference between milk and yogurt. Generally speaking, you can say Shiva is not different from the Supreme Personality Godhead. But then you have to drill down, and yes, there is a difference. So this is why Narada he's taken off for outside the material universe for Shivaloka, which is beyond the coverings of the material universe, in the marginal position between the material world and Vaikuntha. So when Narada Muni gets there, we described how he arrives in Shivaloka in the middle of a kirtan. Lord Shiva is doing kirtan for his worshipable deity, Lord Sankarshan. Which is interesting because Sankarshan is the Supreme Personality Godhead, and Lord Shiva is practically almost the Supreme Personality Godhead. Yet he's engaged in kirtan for his worshipable deity, and his wife, Uma, Parvati, is clapping her hands for the kirtan, and Lord Shiva is very happy. She's clapping so nicely. His other associates are helping with the kirtan, and Narada Muni has just appeared, carrying his veena. And Narada Muni doesn't want to break up the kirtan. So he doesn't say anything. At first, he just nods his head in time to the kirtan and plays his veena. He's joined in the kirtan. And after a while, Narada Muni starts reciting all the things Brahma told him about Lord Shiva. About how Lord Shiva is non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How close the two are. Narada Muni is reciting parampara knowledge given by Lord Brahma. Shiva can't handle it. Lord Shiva covers his ears. So Narada Muni has to reconsider his approach. Lord Shiva doesn't like being glorified as being non-different from the Supreme Personality Godhead, although that's a fact. So I need to adopt a different approach. Narada Muni doesn't give up. What will the different approach be? I will start praising Shiva because he is the knower of the mysteries of devotional service. He's the knower of the mysteries of the relationship between the Supreme Personality Godhead and the devotees. So Narada Muni thinks this is the best approach. But in glorifying Lord Shiva in that way, saying how Lord Shiva is the greatest recipient of the Lord's mercy because Lord Shiva understands the intricacies of bhakti. Particularly, Lord Shiva, actually, he's more in Vaishnava circles. Lord Shiva is more famous, not for being a guna avatar, qualitative incarnation, but for being a Vaishnava and for his initiating knowledge of pure devotional service. So in this way, Narada Muni changes his strategy and starts glorifying Lord Shiva as the greatest recipient of the Lord's mercy. But that also results in Lord Shiva not being pleased. In fact, Lord Shiva gets a bit angry, and he even takes two hands and covers Narada Muni's mouth. Narada Muni has been describing how you actually are able to give benedictions to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lord Shiva doesn't want to hear that. Why are you bringing up my worst moments? Why are you bringing up situations in which I have made grievous errors? Why are you remembering these things? It's like, maybe it's happened to you. Someone brings up something foolish you did 30 years ago. And why are you bringing that up now? 30 years ago. I've seen it happen in family life. I've seen it happen amongst devotees in general. So, this is Lord Shiva's reaction. In other words, I blew it. And here you are bringing this up as a glorification of me? You're bringing up that I give benedictions to the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Of course, the reality is that Krishna in his various roles, his various incarnations and expansions, they all want to glorify the devotee. It is not that the devotee is superior in terms of quantity than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead wants it advertised that his devotee is greater than him because of the quality of love. And so therefore, he submits to Lord Shiva's blessings and benedictions. There's one case described in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, how you have to see it from 2 points of view, Lord Shiva's point of view and the view of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From the way Lord Shiva presents it to Narada Muni, what happened here? I decided to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead because I wanted more fame and attention than he has. That's Lord Shiva's reason. I wanted to be more well-known. And so I worshipped him so that he would give me the benediction. And what benediction did I want from him? That I would be greater than him. So Lord Shiva's deriding himself. Can you believe that? I perform puja for that purpose. To be considered greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What's going on here? This is Lord Shiva's humility. Looked at from another point of view, Lord Shiva was being very clever. He wanted the benediction of being the servant of the Supreme Lord, but he knew the Supreme Personality of Godhead is too humble to grant servitude to someone who apparently is exalted as me, Shiva. So I got to go about it in a different way. I will ask him, make me greater than you. And what does that mean? Make me your servant. Because the servant is greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in that way, Lord Shiva was very clever. But he's presenting himself to Narada Muni as being in great error. Can you believe what I did? I performed puja just for the purpose of being greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But no, it wasn't actually the case. He adopted a very brilliant strategy. By asking to be greater than him, that means I'm asking to be his servant. And this is something we can remember. The servant of the Supreme Lord is considered by the Supreme Lord to be greater than him. So, as aspiring Vaishnavas, we always cherish the role of being servant of the servant. As Narottam Das Thakur says, Chariya Vaishnava Seva Nishta Payeje Keva. Who do you know who's ever become free from material existence without the mercy of the Vaishnava? So this is why Lord Shiva did what he did. This chapter is introducing you, this chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam is introducing you to inconceivable opulence. Even within this material world, there is opulence beyond what we can imagine. So you're hearing about some of it. The heavenly vacation spots for the demigods. The opulence of Kailas. And we're telling you a little bit about the opulence of Shivaloka. But far beyond the opulence of Shivaloka is Vaikuntha. You see, Lord Shiva's behavior, in which he is practically naked all the time, even though his wife and his associates are around him. I don't think you ladies would want a husband like that, but Lord Shiva, he's the greatest husband, but he has peculiar behaviors. Those behaviors, if anyone else adopts, they're finished. But for Lord Shiva, his behavior is an expression of his ecstasies in love of Krishna. But those ecstasies and opulences that you see in Lord Shiva, even though he's dressed the way he's dressed, practically nothing or nothing, those ecstasies are just a partial manifestation of the ecstasies of Krishna, the opulences of Krishna. We've spoken before about the behavior and appearance of Lord Shiva, besides for the Vaishnavas being an expression of his ecstasy and love of God. For others, it attracts them materially. It's Lord Shiva's preaching program for persons who like intoxication in the mode of ignorance. So Lord Shiva, he behaves the way he does and dresses the way he does. You like, huh? I'm wearing a garland of marijuana. Surely I'm the God for you. You like ghostly stuff and ghoulish stuff? Oh, look at my associates. I've got billions of those guys around me. So you want to be in the mode of ignorance? Focus on me. So that's what the Shivites do. We spoke last week about how you go to Vrindavan Dham, and you'll see Boma Vrindavan, earthly Vrindavan, and you'll see the Shivites on the side of the road, and got a little altar, and a picture or painting of Lord Shiva on the altar, and all the Shivites have pipes in their hand, and before they take a toke, they first offer the pipe to Lord Shiva. So this is Lord Shiva's mercy on those types. They focus on the mode of ignorance attributes. Although those same mode of ignorance attributes for Lord Shiva himself don't compromise him in the slightest. The Vaishnavas focus not on the garland of skulls and marijuana and other leaves, and the body smeared with ashes and the nakedness. The Vaishnavas focus on Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, or Vaishnavanam Maheshwara. Maheshwara, Lord Shiva, is the best devotee. That's what the Vaishnavas focus on. So Lord Shiva has something for everyone. Interestingly, when Narada Muni is glorifying Lord Shiva, he points out, let me present you where I'm really at. Don't you understand? I'm the Guna avatar in charge of the mode of ignorance, particularly false ego, ahankara. You know how in Bhagavad Gita Krishna says, ahankara vimutatma kataham iti manyate. The super fool, not just mudha, but vimudha. When you have V in front of mudha, that means intensified. The super fool thinks he or she is the doer, when they're actually just being shoved around by material nature. Ahankara bhutaka kataham iti manyate. So Lord Shiva is telling Narada Muni, I'm in charge of false ego. And it's ahankara, false ego, that makes everyone in the universe, from Lord Brahma on down, think they are so important. So how can I be worthy of your words of praise? I was speaking a few days ago on an online Zoom class for the UK about how the acharyas explained that the ahankara, the false ego, is filled up with karmic impressions. So it's not simply that you think you're so important and that you are the body and you are whatever material roles you identify with. That's not the extent of ahankara, false ego. The false ego is filled up like a shopping bag, you could say, filled up with all kinds of karmic impressions. And this bag of karmic impressions, this false ego bag of karmic impressions, is tightly knotted by your activities. So this is what makes the imprisonment, the bind, the grip of false ego so tight, is the continued chain of action and reaction. So your false ego is loaded up with karmic impressions from countless lifetimes. And then you're acting again and again through countless lifetimes, and that makes the hridaya granthi, the hard knot in the heart, so tight. And you keep making it tighter and tighter and tighter. Like you have a shoelace on your shoe, and you make the knot once, you make the knot twice, 3 times, 4 times. This is the process of material existence. So Lord Shiva is explaining to Narada Muni, this is what I do, this is what I'm in charge of. So again, Lord Shiva, for the Vaishnavas, is revealing ecstasies and opulences of bhakti. But his opulences don't compare to Vaikuntha. And the opulences in Vaikuntha don't compare to Brajaloka, the topmost planet of the spiritual world. So often, although it's always good to repeat, I explain about how it may be difficult for us in our material conceptions to understand the opulences of Brajaloka compared to Vaikuntha. Friday was the Hera Panchami festival, otherwise known as Lakshmi Vijay, the conquest by Lakshmi Devi. It's a wonderful pastime. I read it again and again. You can hear it again and again. Do you mind? I know you all know it's right. You know it, right? Everyone knows it? The Rath Yatra has happened. Jagannath has gone to Gundicha, which is the replica of Vrindavan. He's left the Jagannath Puri temple, which is considered to be Dwarka. He tells Lakshmi Devi, I shall return. I'm just going for a little ride. He doesn't return. So obviously, Lakshmi Devi, his Vaikuntha consort, is getting disturbed, and she decides to go seek him out. So that is Hera Panchami Mahotsava, the festival, also known as Lakshmi Vijay. Lakshmi Devi on the conquest. You can see this ceremony externally. You'll see the deity of Lakshmi Devi borne on a palanquin by priests. She'll come out of the Jagannath Puri temple. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates are actually seeing the Leela. In case you haven't realized. They see the associates of Lakshmi Devi attacking Lord Jagannath's priests. Where is he? Where is he? Bring him before us. He promised he would come back. Where is he? And you priests are all accomplices. You've created this problem. So they're binding up the priests, arresting them, making the priests fall down at the feet of Lakshmi Devi. And so Lord Chaitanya and his associates are watching all this. And they're commenting amongst themselves. We've seen pride before, but we've never seen pride like this. We've seen pride in Satyabhama, Krishna's chief wife in Dwarka. Not chief wife, but chief wife who's proud. The chief of the proud wives. Rukmini is the chief, but don't tell that to Satyabhama. She's famous for causing transcendental problems. For Krishna's pleasure. Krishna has it all. That's why we're envious of him. He's got submissive wives. He's got volatile wives. It's all for his enjoyment. These days, you consider yourself fortunate if you just have a peaceful partner. Everything is fine, no arguments. Everything is calm. But Krishna wants more than that. Why just a peaceful partner all the time? Why not a partner who gets angry sometimes? A partner who throws a tantrum, makes life interesting. So he has that. So Satyabhama is in charge of the resentful wife department. You're neglecting me. Who do you think you are? You treated others better than you treated me. You brought Rukmini, Parijata flower from the heavenly planets. Where's mine? So to satisfy her, Krishna had to bring back not a flower, a Parijata flower, but he had to bring back the whole Parijata tree. That calmed her down. Okay, I got the tree. She only has the flower. So, the Lord Chaitanya and his associates, they're talking amongst themselves. They're watching the whole Hera Panchami festival unfold. And we've never seen pride like this. There's Satyabhama, and now we're seeing Lakshmi Devi, and then there's also the gopis in Vrindavan with their gopi mana, their pride. But we've never seen anything like this before. Lord Chaitanya immediately knows he's being given a hint. Oh, you mentioned the pride of the gopis in Vrindavan? Can I hear about that? And then off they go, describing the varieties of consorts that Krishna has. Some are very submissive, some are very feisty, some are a mixture of being feisty and submissive. Some are known as Dhira, very calm, and even when they're angry, they hide it. They don't say it. Externally, they present themselves very peaceful and being very agreeable. And then there are those who are Adhira, very restless and indeed very feisty and don't tolerate anything. And then there are those who are both. Dhira, both calm and feisty. So Krishna has it all. Aren't we envious? Sometimes I've heard ladies complain, my husband is too boring. And sometimes the men say, my wife is not fun enough. But Krishna has it all. He has it. He has his cake and eats it. He's got feisty consorts. He's got consorts, and those who are both. So there's a whole categorization of the moods and the pride of Krishna's consorts. There are divisions and subdivisions and sub-subdivisions. This is the vilas, the enjoyment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sup Damodar, in explaining this to Mahaprabhu, says the mana, the gopi mana, the pride of the gopis is like a river with hundreds of tributaries. So many streams coming off the river. So, that description is there. Srivas Thakur of the Panchatattva is listening. He's there. And who is Srivas Thakur? He's Narada Muni. Narada Muni is a Vaikuntha devotee who is allowed to access Krishna Lila. He has an entry card into all kinds of pastimes. So, Srivas is listening to this glorification of Vrindavan and Gopimana. But wait a minute. Let me tell you about my goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi. Her opulence is so immeasurable. She sits on a throne of jewels. Why this talk about Vrindavan? What is Vrindavan? What are the opulences of Vrindavan? Some peacock feathers strewn here and there, some forest minerals, some gunja berries, some milk products. Why are you glorifying Srimati Radharani? All she has is a flower garden. But my Lakshmi Devi sits on a throne of incalculable jewels. How can there be any comparison? Look at the wealth of the associates of Narayan and Vaikuntha. And look at the so-called wealth of Vrindavan. All the gopis do is boil milk and make it into yogurt. Where's their jewelry? Where's their majesty? So he's going on and on like this. And Lord Chaitanya says, all right, enough, Srivas. We know why you're talking that way. You're in your Narada Swabhav. You're in your nature as Narada Muni, a devotee of Vaikuntha. But you're telling this to Sarup Damodar, who is a Shuddha Brajabasi. He's a pure devotee of Vrindavan. How can you tell him about all this Vaikuntha opulence? So now it's time for Sarup Damodar to give his lecture on the opulence of Braj. He says, Parama Purushottama Swayam Bhagavan Krishna Yaha Dhani Taha Vrindavana Dham. Parama Purushottama. Krishna is indeed the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan, and he possesses all opulence. But his full opulence is only revealed in Vrindavan Dham. Now wait a minute. We just heard Srivas accurately describing. All they've got in Vrindavan Dham is boiled milk and yogurt and some feathers and flowers and forest minerals, and that's all they've got. But here Sarup Damodar is saying, no. The full opulence of Bhagavan is only perceived in Brajaloka. So then Sarup Damodar begins to describe. Chintamani, the ground is composed of touchstone. All the water is Amrita, nectar. All the trees are Kalpavrikshas, desire trees. All the cows are Kamadhenus, These Kamadhenus, these wish-fulfilling cows can give you anything. But all the Brijbasis ask of the Kamadhenus is for milk. What is this? I mean, if we had a Kamadhenu, we got a long list of... But here, Subdhamma is explaining, although Brajaloka is full of Kamadhenus, the residents only want milk from them, even though the Kamadhenus can give anything. This is how pure they are. Actually, this is how opulent they are. They're opulent in the purest kind of love. That is Sri Damodar's hidden point, you could say. And what's more, every step they take is nritya, dancing. Every word they speak is Gita, song. He says, as for the opulence of Vaikuntha, there's no comparison. It's like comparing a drop with an ocean. In that way, he completed his he finished his complete dismantling of Srimad Thakur's presentation. And in the process of doing so, Sri Damodar is teaching us what is real opulence, the simplicity of spontaneous love and Braj. Far surpasses the opulence of Vaikuntha, even though to ordinary vision, the opulence of Vaikuntha looks so unsurpassable. It's what you can readily identify with from your material standpoint. Jewels and thrones and palaces and majesty, and that's opulence. But no, Brajaloka is introducing you to the opulence of spontaneous love, where the devotee doesn't even consider Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee just considers that Krishna is my lover, he's my child, he's my friend, and so on. So that is the real opulence. And Sri Damodar is presenting the case. And who could present it better than Sri Damodar? He's a Shuddha Brajavasi, a pure resident of Vrindavan. So Sri Damodar's lecture, his dismantling, was so extraordinary that Srivas Thakur couldn't respond. But there's no rebuttal, no response. Srivas Thakur just allowed himself to be overwhelmed and just started jumping up and down, slapping his armpits like that, making funny sounds. That was his response. And then a wild kirtan started. And Lord Chaitanya is dancing and dancing. The kirtan becomes so ecstatic that Nityananda sees something that causes Nityananda to watch very respectfully from a distance. Because what happens in the middle of the kirtan is that Lord Chaitanya manifests as Srimati Radharani. So the kirtan keeps going on and on and on and on, non-stop. Finally, devotees, Nityananda had to mention to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this kirtan has been going on for quite some time now. Perhaps the devotees are a bit tired. And then Lord Chaitanya ended the kirtan. Yet here we are hearing about the opulence of Mount Kailas and the opulence of Shivaloka. You get the full perspective. And you start to understand why Krishna is unlimitedly attractive. When you see the whole panorama, all the options. How can you consider the so-called beauty of this world to be so wonderful? This disastrous planet. Just now in Germany, they're having massive floods in the northwestern part of Germany. They say these floods are not something that happened 100 years ago. these are floods that we haven't, the Earth's history has not seen the like of it for thousands of years. Then you have the western part of the USA burning up in record-breaking temperatures last week. The highest temperature ever recorded on the Earth planet was registered. So, still, we think there's beauty here. Therefore, we need to hear about the heavenly planets. We spoke about we spoke about what the Bhagavatam says. How the demigods and their consorts fly around to these heavenly planet vacation spots, and they're bathing in the water after their romantic indulgences. And even though they're devatas, they're demigods, in places which are giving enjoyment thousands of times more than what's available on Earth planet, after their sensual indulgences, they are morose. So you say, well, if that's the case for them, what about us? They're morose. Ratita Karshita, the Sanskrit tells us, as Prabhupada explains in the purport. So you hear that, and they bathe in the water of the river, and the water becomes fragrant by their bathing in it. And then the elephants, even though the elephants aren't thirsty, they want to drink up the water because of the fragrance from the bodies of the devatas and their consorts are flavoring the river water. And that's just the Kailas in the material world. Actually, not Kailas. This is Kuvera's abode near Kailas. And then you hear the opulence of Kailas. Lord Shiva is sitting under a banyan tree that's 800 miles high, and his branches spread over 600 miles. The tree cast a fine shade which permanently cooled the temperature, yet there was no noise of birds. So that's the tree Lord Shiva is sitting under in Kailas. From there we went to Shivaloka. But Shivaloka does not reveal all the opulences of Vaikuntha. And from Vaikuntha we went to Brajaloka. There, with just peacock feathers, milk products, forest minerals, flower gardens, you have the most opulent place. Because of pure, spontaneous love of Krishna. And that is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants to distribute. All right, any questions? Yes.
You mentioned that